Hi class, so chapter 4 is on supporting social entrepreneurship, and we're going to talk about what is social entrepreneurship as part of this discussion. So your learning objectives are describe what social entrepreneurship is and how it plays a role in the world today, how it can help resolve wicked problems, we'll talk about those, identify the different types of social entrepreneurship, and explain how social entrepreneurs can use capital markets to fund ventures. Explain the primary attributes of stakeholders and how these stakeholders can help or hinder a social entrepreneur, and distinguish between corporate social responsibility and social entrepreneurship. Assess the value of this, being inclusive globally. So a quote from Bill Drayton, the founder of Ashoka: "The life purpose of the true social entrepreneur is to change the world." So we're dealing with the social entrepreneurship, where entrepreneurs are coming up with ideas and businesses that can help preserve and protect future generations through empathy, compassion, and commitment. So it's becoming a popular way of conducting business while making a social and economic impact. And over the years, researchers have struggled to define social entrepreneurship, but some regard all social entrepreneurship kind of as not-for-profit initiatives, where social entrepreneurs need to choose between making a social or an economic impact. But there can be some that are for-profit. So let's talk about this. So what is a wicked problem? And social entrepreneurship can help resolve these wicked problems. These are large, complex social problems without a clear solution, where there is a limit, confusing or contradictory information available, where a range of people with conflicting values engage in a debate. So some examples of wicked problems are problems relating to the environment, terrorism, poverty, health and wellness, all where lots of people have lots of debate on what's the best way to resolve this. Here's a way of defining these. Wicked problems have no stopping rule. The problem isn't understood until after the formulation of a solution. Solutions to wicked problems aren't right or wrong. They're essentially novel and unique. Every solution to a wicked problem is a one-shot operation. Wicked problems have no given alternative solutions. So again, here's some examples: equality, education, sustainability, environmental issues, and how entrepreneurs have been solving wicked problems like Kickstart, reducing hunger in Africa; in India, eradicating avoidable blindness; Tony Elumelu, investing in entrepreneurship for refugees. And again, here's some global wicked problems. You can see this picture just shows all the different wicked problems and how they're different from others. So let's now talk about types of social entrepreneurship. There are different models of this, and we're going to look at the differences between traditional and social entrepreneurship. So first kind we're going to talk about social purpose ventures. There's also social conscious ventures. There are enterprising nonprofits and their relationship to social entrepreneurship, and then hybrid model this. And you can see how the typology of ventures, how they can have an impact, like with their venture mission, on primary market income impacts, on economic impacts, as well as social impacts, and which ones of those four we just talked about kind of have the biggest impact. Like economic, the traditional is more of an economic. The social is more of an economic combined with social, and you have hybrids too. So let's look at social purpose ventures. These are businesses created by social entrepreneurs to resolve a certain social problem but make a profit. An example of this is Pact, where Pact uses family farms in India and pays a higher price on cotton to help sustain these farms. Then there is social consequence entrepreneurship, and this is a for-profit venture whose primary market impact is social. Like a for-profit venture, for example, is a startup company like Sword and Plow, where they hire Army veterans to recycle surplus military materials such as parachutes, sleeping bags, and tents into fashionable bags and accessories. So it can be for-profit, helping like reduce throwing away goods and recycling. Then there are enterprising nonprofits. These are a form of social entrepreneurship where both the venture mission and the market impact are for social purposes purely. That means any profits must be channeled back into the organization. Enterprising nonprofits are more likely to survive in business after the first 5 years compared to traditional nonprofit startups. And they have different revenue resources. They have better access to revenue streams from universities, hospitals, foundations. And they can also engage in earned income activities. For example, selling products or services to be used as a revenue source, like the Woodland Park Zoo is one of several zoos where they sell the animal dung to the public as garden fertilizer, so they're helping pay for their funding. And then venture philanthropy funding combines financial assistance through grants, like federal grants or typical is for the goal of enabling the nonprofit to become financially independent by the end of 5 years. Here's some quick facts about nonprofits, how many there are, public charities, private foundations, and other types of nonprofits. And the differences between, that's what I was just talking about, the difference between traditional nonprofit entrepreneurs and enterprising nonprofits. Enterprising nonprofits have a higher percentage of women. The average age is 53, so they're older. Their education, most of them 89% have a college degree, and they have previous experience of work in the private sector. Here are some features of venture philanthropy: high engagement, where they have close hands-on relationships with social entrepreneurs and the ventures they support. They could have multi-year support where they provide substantial financial support to a limited number of organizations. Tailored financing, like venture capitalists, where they take an investment approach to determine the most appropriate financing for each organization they're funding. And non-financial support. These venture philanthropists provide value-added services like strategic planning or marketing for these ventures. So that's non-financial support. And then performance measurement is venture philanthropy investment is performance-based, placing emphasis on good business planning and measurable outcomes and management competence. So we've kind of described the emerging forms of social entrepreneurship of the 4-part typology, but a hybrid model describes an organization whose purpose is equally emphasize both economic and social. Remember that quadrant we looked at to start with? And examples of some businesses are Better World Books, Sustainable Harvest, and Vision Spring. So they kind of are working towards being having economic goals and social goals for those. So now we're into capital markets for social entrepreneurs. And just as traditional entrepreneur ventures need money, capital, or things in order to survive, so do social entrepreneurs. So this is going to discuss ways to fund some of these capital markets for social entrepreneurship ventures. There are capitalists who will fund them. There are community funds, and there's also microfinancing for these. So social venture capitalists, so think of Shark Tank, and those are venture capitalists. These are people who focus solely on like social solving entrepreneurs to solve problems and make an impact in the world. And there are lots of things out there these days. Should social entrepreneurs be responsible for assessing the effects of their endeavors, or is it sufficient they're making an effort? Just some critiquing for you to think about. Here's some examples of impact investment funds. Sustainable trade financing. It's a UK-based $55 million fund, and it invests in sustainable trade and has provided a lot of loans to small growing businesses in Latin America and Asia. Low-income housing. It's a private equity fund in Brazil that they target market rate financial returns and social benefits to rural communities in America. Clean energy access is another one. Clean drinking water. So these are different funds. So the third way of funding is microfinance. These are short-term, really low amounts to fund some of these social entrepreneurship efforts. And they can really help. Like a lot of people get started, like Grameen Bank is one of them, who will give funds to people, a new entrepreneur, let's say in Africa, trying to help hungry people, and they might loan this person $500 just to help them get started. So microfinancing. So social entrepreneurs and their stakeholders. Who are their stakeholders for social entrepreneurs? Well, lots of people, same as regular entrepreneurs and ventures: employees, volunteers, investors, customers, suppliers, and manufacturers. More the community leaders, sponsors, and board members, and entrepreneurs. And here's just an example of a stakeholder map: the mayor, city planners, employees. I'm going to skip through some of these. And the types of stakeholders that it goes into are dormant, discretionary, demanding, dominant, dependent, dangerous, and definitive. So what are we talking about here? The stakeholders are people or groups affected by or involved with the achievements of your social enterprise's objectives. All of these start with the D. So dormant stakeholders are sleepers. They hold power but don't tend to use that power unless they're given a reason to. But they may become significant when they utilize their power. For example, a disgruntled member may complain about a CEO on social media. Okay, so you want to keep them satisfied. Discretionary stakeholders are have no power or influence and no urgent claims, but they have legitimacy. They might donate to your organization or willing to support social causes. Just demanding stakeholders possess the urgency attribute. They have no power or legitimacy, but they only may be the dissenting voice in the room, like people protesting outside the CEO National Conference because they believe entrepreneurs create income inequality in the economy. They don't have any power to enforce their claims, but they don't really impact the CEO. And not a lot of time and energy should be devoted to them. Then there's dominant stakeholders who have both power and legitimacy. They give you a strong influence in your organization, like college presidents or deans of business schools. There are dependent stakeholders who have both urgency and legitimacy but lack the power to influence. They're passionate, and their passion can attract dominant stakeholders, like student members of CEO are the most enthusiastic and passionate stakeholders connected to this organization. And the CEO is Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization. Because we're using that as an example. Sorry, I should have said that up front. Dangerous stakeholders possess both power and urgency. For example, with the CEO, the Collegiate Entrepreneurship Organization, competing organizations may emerge that can use false advertising to get members of the CEO to move their membership to a different kind of collegiate entrepreneurship organization. Definitive stakeholders are the only ones who possess all three attributes of power, legitimacy, and urgency, and they have a significant role to play in your organization. You got to give them priority when it comes to handling their claims or complaints. So entrepreneurship and corporate social responsibility. We're going to talk about the differences between this. So corporate social responsibility describes efforts by corporations who are trying to minimize their effects on the environment and maximize their social impact on the social well-being, or to maximize social positive change in the world. So what's the difference between that and social entrepreneurship? So you can see corporations who try to minimize their negative effects on the world and maximize positive are a sideshow department, seeks to reduce harm, feel and look good, stakeholder is the observer or image motivated, versus a social entrepreneur who this is their core mission to do whatever they're doing, where with corporate responsibility that is just peripheral to their mission of the overall company. They do measure social impact. The social entrepreneurs are purpose-driven and opportunity motivated. So CSR does make good business sense for companies to engage in because, for example, like Tom's Shoes, giving a pair of shoes to people who don't have shoes. That's kind of like corporate social responsibility. It does lead to real innovations like environmentally safe products, decreases costs. It does increase the public image through their efforts to do good deeds, and also brings people together, like when they give to charities or hold charity events to raise money. That's what corporate social responsibility is. So social entrepreneurship and global inclusion, we're going to talk about what this is social inclusion, and it's really kind of trying to include people all over the world on the margins of society to give them new opportunities and hope. So it creates opportunities, breaks down social issues, encourages hope. For example, WISE is Work Integration Social Enterprise, whose mission is to integrate people who have been socially excluded into work and society through productive activity. And I wanted you to pay attention to the end of chapter 4, table 4.8. Here's some of the resources for social entrepreneurs and organizations. If you're interested in this type of entrepreneurship or venture and want to start something like this to solve a world problem, you can utilize that table 4.8 to help you. Practice being other. So here's a little exercise you could do. In this mind shift, your challenge is to practice being other-centered for 1 week. We kind of live in a me world where events and relationships are measured by how much do we have and what ways they affect us. Being other-centered means stepping outside ourselves and shifting the focus into serving the good of others. For example, instead of getting frustrated as an older adult, I know you do, or when you're driving down the road and it's me driving and you're behind me and I'm going slower, don't get frustrated with me. Try to take an attitude or help this older person by put away her change at the checkout line, give her a reassuring smile, maybe help offer this woman with the bags of groceries. Think about different ways you can help others who may be struggling and make someone else's days. To what extent do you feel like you already are another? Maybe you are. Give some examples of your actions. Was it easier than you expected by being more focused on others and yourself? Probably gives you a lot of satisfaction. So anyway, what did you learn from this mind shift? That's just a little exercise to think about in this next week. Hope you've enjoyed chapter 4 on what social entrepreneurship is and how it's different from traditional entrepreneurship. So we're helping solve world problems like this. Some of them are for profit and some of them aren't. Thank you.